Hello, Internet. Gino, that being Gino Grieco, here again with another episode of Deep Listens, and it's time, once again, to go balls deep into the NBA. It's time to discuss the NBA playoffs and the superlatives for the season that was. Which means, of course, I am joined by Pete, the Dunk Master Busby.
What's going on, everybody? Excited to once again be talking about the NBA, especially come playoff time. I think I can still dunk. Well, it's been a while since I've tried. Today's fun fact for the day, it's about the Butter Wars. I don't think I've used this one before.
I don't think you have. I think I'd remember the Butter Wars.
But so when margarine first became a thing, the butter lobby was pretty upset about it. So by 1902, 32 states had imposed color constraints on margarine. So margarine comes out as sort of a grayish white. So they were dyeing it yellow to look like butter. A whole bunch of states were like, no, not doing it. Vermont, New Hampshire, South Dakota all demanded that it be dyed pink. Other states had it red, brown, black. Eventually they overturned the pink laws, but it still wasn't allowed to be yellow until the last holdout, Wisconsin, repealed its margarine color law in 1967. So it's just the butter man holding margarine down.
So it's kind of like modern day where there's currently a war against nut milks. Your almond milks and your soy milks, and how the milk lobby is currently trying to stop them from being called milk.
Wants them to be nut juice.
And how they are also trying to get veggie burgers and any sort of thing that is not meat.
Yep, exactly.
Not called a burger.
For whatever reason, lobbyists for food products are all language prescriptivists.
Awesome. Well, good to know about the free and unregulated market. Mm-hmm. And how much and how strongly they believe in it. To talk about the free and unregulated market, we have unregulated market expert ZombiePie Redacted.
Hey now. I deserve a proper introduction, youngin. I want to be properly introduced in this podcast as a king. Rightfully so.
We have the layup maker, Chris ZombiePie Redacted.
Nope.
That's pretty good. Nope. Seems accurate. Layup misser? Would that be?
We have the person who raised.
Listener, this is how communist revisionism is going to permeate into our culture and ruin us all. I am glad to grace this podcast, to grace your Deep Listens audience with my voice. Now that I am the one-time champion of the Giant Bomb Community Endurance Run, dethroning the four-time champion on this podcast. I'm the scrappy upstart. I'm the Brooklyn Nets with my D'Angelo Russell and Karis LeVert.
We just need to clip a section where he says, "I'm the Brooklyn Nets," and just have that.
I think they're going to be good for a long time, but we'll get into that later.
We'll
I actually had,
I hope so.
not to be outdone by Pete. I have been going down the SB Nation YouTube wormhole, which is a interesting thing, but they talked about an interesting fact that may be about basketball. We all know of Granddaddy, Papa, whatever you want to call him to make fun of his age, while he still plays another year of NBA basketball, Vince Carter. We usually think of Vince Carter as the man who restored the glory of the slam dunk contest, but what people don't realize is that he won that slam dunk contest on a team with a coach that did not want him practicing slam dunks, so he had to go to a local gym and practice in secret his slam dunk technique.
That's awesome.
Virtually every single slam dunk that he did during the slam dunk contest, he had not practiced at all because both the Toronto Raptors and the coach felt like it would be a waste of money because it would ruin the rims. And Maybe, sure, but he virtually everything from the windmill dunk to the honey bucket dunk were all his first time doing them. He thought about them on the spot, and what people don't realize is Vince Carter won with, he had rightfully already won the contest, so he won. His last dunk was a two-handed jump from the three-point line. Still impressive, but, we always think of,
You mean free throw line, right?
Yeah, the free throw line.
The three-point line would
Jordan doing it with one hand.
The most incredible athletic achievement in the history of the world if he did it from the three-point line.
Yeah, sorry. But his original plan for that dunk was to do a 720 dunk, which is jump in the air, have his body rotate twice in the air, and then dunk the ball.
That seems impossible.
That was his plan, and if he had done it, he would have gone down in history forever.
Even more than he already did?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's gonna. We live in a world where Vince Carter is gonna play next season, and I'm so happy.
And he's above average.
He's above average.
Vince Carter is good evidence that just like intense athleticism, good clean living, and staying diligent and skilled. You can play in the NBA forever, almost.
Yeah. That man's living the life. You look at Vince Carter, it's like, you ask him, he'll probably say, man, I had a lot of fun. It's like, you know what, Vince?
He's still throwing down dunks in NBA games at 41?
41.
Oof. And he's not a 7-footer. He's just doing it.
He's doing it.
Well, welcome to the NBA Balls Deep podcast. It has been quite a season, and I thought a good place to start our discussion, now that the playoffs are upon us, would be to look back at some of the predictions we made about this season that was, and then we will discuss the playoffs and our predictions therein. And I guess we can even talk about the first round because we missed the first round, although it was chalk the entire way across.
Oh, no. Who would have guessed that the best series would have been a 5-game series?
There was a 7-game series.
Yes, but it was boring.
That's just because the Spurs are boring.
They are.
No, that's because I don't like DeMar DeRozan.
He is also boring.
Exactly.
So let's start by looking at our predictions. So I don't have everyone's predictions right
Pete,
here.
I don't
Does
feel
everyone
good
have
about
their
this.
own predictions?
No, they've been lost to time.
Yeah, I didn't do very well, so I kind of remember some of them, so go down them.
Well, I was, egg on my face for thinking anyone else remembered.
I kind of just forgot them out of pure self-gratitude.
So I remember I had Coach
Reservation.
Bud for Coach of the Year.
You
I
did,
had
which was
Davis for
Yes.
MVP. Not good.
So both of you had Anthony Davis for MVP
Yes.
or Defensive Player of the Year, and
I had it for Defensive Player of the Year, but I predicted LeBron for MVP, so that's double dumbass on me.
Yeah, but do you remember
So-
who I had for both?
You had Giannis for Defensive Player of the Year and MVP.
I feel pretty good about that one.
Yeah, let's talk about your Sixth Man of the Year award, because that's worth talking about, because you missed real hard on that one.
I think I had JJ Redick as Sixth Man of the Year, and
That's a disqualification. I'm going to disqualify Gino, because that's an automatic. Your exact words were they were going to have JJ Redick as a sixth man because they were going to play, and as I recall, you said this, they're going to play Markelle Fultz for the entire season.
I said if they play Markelle Fultz for the season, JJ will be off the bench, but it's entirely likely that he will play starters minutes and score starter level points, which is what happened until Fultz fell out of favor.
Pete almost got it. You jokingly said you wanted Sweet Lou Williams to win the award, and if you had done it and hadn't joined my Terry Rozier blood pack, Pete would have gotten this award.
I shouldn't have doubted him. He's the best player in the NBA. He always has been, and I love him unconditionally.
I kind of joked with Gino that they should just win. I hadn't thought about this, but I don't want to think about this prospect. But when Sweet Lou Williams passes away and enters an alternate dimension where he's just balling out forever, they need to rename the Sixth Man of the Year award to the Sweet Lou Memorial Award.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Just Sweet Lou on the bench, man. If you could have Sweet Lou on the bench as a starter, man, you would win everything.
It's the only thing the Warriors fear. Is Sweet Lou.
Is Sweet Lou.
And yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that the only exception there is that Jamal Crawford might have something to say about that exact same thing, who's doing the exact Sweet Lou thing, but he's like 40 at this point. And it was a sight to see his last game playing with the Phoenix Suns. I don't know if it's the last game of his career, but his last game of this season was him versus Dirk, and both of them were just shooting everything.
You want to talk about a criminally underrated team? How about that team, Houston, that trounced OKC, where they had Sweet Lou and Eric Gordon on the bench? Oh, that was a good team.
It was.
That was a really good team.
Yeah, but the most improved, I think, ZP, you probably, in retrospect, had the best choice there.
Let's talk about this one. I got this one. But let's go over the two people that you guys went with.
I went with Andre Drummond. That was a bad choice.
That was a bad
shot
choice
in the dark.
Because he basically just went out of his way to become the all-time rebounder of the year.
Did I do Sabonis?
Getting them rebounds.
I think you did.
I did Sabonis. I'm still happy
That was okay.
with that.
But
Yeah,
I went with Zach
disappointed.
LaVine. USA. Yeah, Zach LaVine. Totally.
What did he even do this year?
He became the franchise player for the Bulls. And
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did. Well, are you bullshitting me?
Lauri Markkanen's better than him.
Yeah, but he's the heart and soul of the Bulls.
He really shouldn't start. He should be a bench player.
He's been playing perfect basketball.
No,
for
perfect.
Zach LaVine.
He's pretty good. 24, 5, and 4.
And he
basically.
came back from an injury. I should have gone with my heart, to be perfectly honest.
Numbers,
I
though,
should have
3.4.
gone with my heart and gone with De'Aaron Fox, and then I would have had an even more respectable choice. But I doubted myself because why would a Sacramento Kings fan have positivity this NBA season? But alas, I didn't go with my heart and a more logical sixth man. I think.
Yeah, the thing with Zach LaVine is, one, like Pete mentioned, his turnover numbers are abysmal. He really needs to not handle the ball very much. He needs to just get buckets. He needs to be J.R. Smith. And two, his defense is terrible. He's really bad
Everyone's
on
defense on that team is terrible.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be
Lauri's
that way.
defense is terrible.
Yeah, but Zach LaVine really doesn't have an excuse. He's very quick. He's very athletic. He just doesn't know how to play defense.
He's the only quick no, I take that back. I was going to say that he's really out of... Huh?
Chris Dunn is good on defense.
That's a sad statement when you stop and think about it.
Can I ask a question that's not really related to this, but Zach LaVine always makes me think of him?
Sure.
Is Devin Booker good?
You know what? It was really frustrating. He was really frustrating to watch. You remember the game where he scored, 60?
Yes.
I do.
Yeah. Well, you know what was super frustrating about that game is, like, they have all of these other players on that team, and they're all rookies, and they all need to develop. And what does fucking Devin Booker do? He decides to play hero ball on a team that doesn't need him to play hero ball. They literally have DeAndre Ayton there who needs to have the ball and learn from his mistakes. And do you know how many shots he got? He got 8. 8 shots for your first-round draft pick.
Well,
great job.
Devin Booker was their first-round draft pick from like a year or two ago, so it's not exactly like he...
But why are you playing hero ball when you're already the worst team in the league?
Because he's not a point guard. Because he's not a point guard, and they don't have a point guard, and there's no one there to tell him no.
And they also fired their coach, who I thought was fine.
Yep.
Give George a year. You're the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah. Apparently the reason why he was fired is, like, there was a language barrier issue.
If only you could have known that the coach of the Slovenian national team might have a language issue.
But I was rooting for him to become the Kings coach, but that didn't turn out very well.
Yeah.
Good.
He would have been a good fit there.
Sure.
I mean, I don't think they needed to fire their Dave Yeager. I
do definitely think they should have fired Dave Yeager. If we want the Kings fan to talk about their perspective right now, I totally respect firing Dave Yeager.
Before we discuss Dave Yeager, just Pete, about Devin Booker. I would say that he is an outstanding offensive player who intermittently cares about defense, but largely doesn't, and so plays very poor defense on a team going nowhere with no direction and no leadership. So he seems to just be kind of getting his game after game after game after game, but there are plenty of players on bad teams who are just getting theirs who can't score 50 points. So like, for example, D'Angelo Russell when he was on the terrible Lakers. You have some shoot-first guards that play on bad teams that just can't do what he does. So I think that when he's on a team that is competent, he will probably get way fewer shots. His scoring will come down. But if he even puts 10 or 20% more energy into defense, I think that he will be a useful player.
So
he also has 4 points. Yeah, one last point. He has 4.1 turnovers a game.
Yeah, and what's his assist percent?
Like 6. I think he's got like a 1.2 assist to turnover ratio.
Yeah, his usage rate must be insane.
Yeah, and it's crazy high.
Yeah.
He basically just walks up the court and then decides to jack it. And he's not even a particularly good three-point shooter right now. I think he's in the low 30s. Like, he gets a lot of points on garbagey stuff and free throws and stuff that wouldn't be happening if he was on a good team. So I'm not entirely sure how good he is. Like, his scoring numbers suggest all-star or level player, but I'm just thinking like probably competent starter, sixth man sort of thing right now, unless he gets better on defense or brings up his shooting percentage.
Okay.
So real quick, I found the notes from that podcast. We can actually run down what we all voted for. So for Rookie of the Year, Pete and Gino both went with Luka, and I was
we were right.
And I was the contrarian. I went with DeAndre Ayton. So I'll give 1 point to Gino and Pete and a half point to me because I picked the number 2 option.
I don't know if he's the number 2.
Are you going to go with Trae Young?
I was going to say Trae Young or Jaren Jackson.
I would go with Colin Sexton over Jaren Jackson Jr., even though he only played half a season. I'm going to give myself half credit then.
Go right ahead.
Most improved, I went with Zach LaVine. Pete went with DeMontis Sabonis, and Gino went with J.J. Redick.
No, Andre Drummond, not most improved.
Andre Drummond, I'm sorry. I was looking at the sixth man and the most improved. So I'm going to give Gino 0 points. I'm going to give myself another half point, and then I'm going to give Pete. Was DeMontis Sabonis a sixth man? Yeah, let's
was
give
he
you
improved
a
is
half
the
point.
question.
That's the
yes,
other thing was DeMontis Sabonis just DeMontis Sabonis?
Let's pick a point. I mean, this is like, whose line is it anyway? Points don't matter.
Okay, we'll give you a half point. Sixth man of the year was a giant wasteland for all of us.
I literally was going to make the whose line is it anyway joke the first time he said the points, and you got to it first. Damn it. Go ahead.
Pete and I both went with Scary Terry.
Yeah, that's just not right.
Bad that was a bad pick. That was a bad pick. But Gino also didn't get any points. Can
I get a quarter of a point? JJ was so good that he got moved to the starting lineup.
Give Gino negative points.
What? I was thinking about giving him a disqualification, so that's minus 1 point.
I get a taco out of 12? Go ahead.
Okay. Defensive Player of the Year, Pete and I both went with Anthony Davis, and Gino went with Giannis.
Anthony Davis.
Although later in the podcast, I asked if I could change my vote to Paul George, and I think Gino said I could.
But you didn't.
I did. What?
Okay, fine.
I asked for permission. It was a matter of if you were going to allow me to change my vote.
I'm pretty sure that Giannis is going to come in second or third in Defensive Player of the Year, and Paul George might come in second, third, or fourth in voting. So those are both close.
Okay,
Anthony Davis is
real
not close.
talk. Who do you think is the Defensive Player of the Year?
It's probably Rudy. It's either Rudy or Giannis, I think.
Which reminds me, actually, Pete didn't actually go with Anthony Davis. He went with the French Connection.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that's a full point to Pete.
I'm the best.
That's 0 points to me, and that's half points to Gino.
And then subject to review if the results go the other way. We'll see. Yeah. I'm sure we'll go back and check these scores.
Yeah,
Coach 100%. Of the Year, I went with Brad Stevens. That's a 0 point because
not gonna win.
Yeah.
He's not going to win, and the Celtics kind of underachieved.
Yeah, the Celtics underachieve, and, they're going to lose their best player probably, so I'll give myself 0 to that. And the rest of y'all went with Coach Bud, which was clearly the correct answer.
1 billion points.
You know what? I'm going to be the contrarian and say the Coach of the Year should go to Pop. I was talking to Gino about this, but he played a team without a guard and without any shooting, and he has DeMar DeRozan.
Why do we keep talking about DeMar DeRozan like him being on your team is a net negative?
It is, because I don't trust DeMar DeRozan in the playoffs. I keep shouting this at you.
That's not a net negative. He's just an okay player in the playoffs. Like
He's
a good starter
cursed.
in the
He is
playoffs.
literally cursed in the first round.
It's a net negative to fun.
Yeah, it's a net negative to fun, and he is cursed.
He's not cursed. He just shoots mid. He just watched too many Kobe tapes, and he just shoots too many fadeaway mid-range jump shots.
Doc Rivers might also be a good candidate for Coach of the Year, but it's probably going to go to Coach Bud.
Yeah, and I had myself down as Pop, so I know Pete probably got it.
Oh, yeah.
Pop probably didn't get it. And Brad Stevens most definitely did.
I really want Coach Pop to coach another year.
Same.
I think he should.
Then on the MVP.
The MVP, I went with LeBron. That is not going to happen anytime soon, because I thought that LeBron could at least tie Jordan. I thought this was the year. But oops. Pete went with Anthony Davis.
Not great.
Yep. Although, if the Pelicans had really continued with their shit show and they had let him play until the end of the year and then not back away from when they were just kept playing him, might have happened.
Adam Silver would not have allowed that. Like, it would have been hilarious to see him handing the trophy to Anthony Davis in L.A. or wherever he gets traded this offseason.
That whole situation, if it hadn't been for the Lakers, like, my favorite storyline was following, what's Anthony Davis doing now? It's like, this is why, literally, if you want to own a basketball team, you have to be a basketball-minded person. Football people should not be in this sport.
Yeah.
And then Gino picked Giannis. Gino picked Giannis.
Give me the points. 75 points.
You get 2 points.
No, Gino doesn't get any points. That answer is too obvious. 0 points.
0
exactly.
points.
You didn't go out of your way. To pick something interesting.
I get 7 points out of sandwich. Go.
Yeah, you get a Taco Bell taco.
And
I'm going to go over to buy it from the dollar menu right now.
So the worst record,
Oh, that's right. We still have our pick for worst team of the year and then most depressing team of the year.
Yeah.
Remember, we both predicted that the worst team, Pete, would be Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
which was, you know what?
They were fine.
They were
bad, but
they're still. I know I keep harping on this. I don't mean this to insult the man because he's clearly better at basketball than me, obviously. But they're so small.
It's true. They're hopefully bad, though.
And Trae Young is turning the ball over like crazy.
Yeah, but he's a rookie point guard. These are things that happen to rookie point guards,
But
especially
he's not going to get taller.
No, but he might get smarter because he's not going to get that much thicker, I don't think. But right now he's the worst defensive player in the league, and I think that's largely because he's a tiny, waifish player right now who doesn't have a lot of defensive experience. And so once he fills out a little bit more and gets a little bit more coaching, I think he'll be fine. But I think he tops out at fine on defense.
And Gino was the one who got closest with the Phoenix Suns. Another great storyline, what are the Phoenix Suns doing? God. You look at their roster, and they're not that bad. You look at their roster, you look at all the pieces that they have, and it's how did you only win 19 games? How?
Apparently poor communication between coach and players. Thank God they fixed that.
Yeah.
I don't hate their roster. I don't hate Kelly Oubre Jr. with Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton.
I hate that.
Why?
Because they don't have a point guard and they have a bunch of guys whose only skill is offense. None of them even try on defense. Maybe Ayton tries, but he's not good at it yet. And they just have a bunch of guys who replicate their skills, and that skill is not shooting, it's volume scoring. They've got the least useful skill applied across multiple players.
But
and no one in charge.
At some point, here's the other thing: is how do you look at this record and not trade these pieces because these pieces are valuable on other teams?
That's the thing. There are a bunch of players who would be valuable on other teams, but when you put them all together, they are not. They're not even additive. They subtract from each other. And I think maybe you move some of these players, but you definitely need to get a point guard who's competent. You can't have Devin Booker just deciding to call his own number over and over and over again. And you can't have no plus defender in your entire perimeter. You're going to lose a lot of games.
And I think the over-under on Sarver trading away his draft pick this year is pretty good. I mean, unless they get the ability to suddenly pick, which is a real thing that could happen, to get Zion. But I don't want Zion to go to the Suns.
He would be terrible on the Suns. He doesn't fix their problems.
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I want Zion to go to the Knicks.
I want him to go to the Knicks.
I want to continue hating Kevin Durant. So, like, whatever he does to continue being as annoying as possible is fine with me.
So I
that
think
was my favorite story. That was my favorite story of the NBA. Is Kevin Durant becoming increasingly annoying? I think it's hilarious.
Yep, one of the most gifted scorers of his entire generation, and
a coward.
Yeah, he's just awful.
He's a coward.
Not like as a player, he's excellent.
No,
as a player, he's awesome. He's a coward.
He's awful.
Well, I think I got closest on the worst team.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. But the New York Knicks, how about them?
I should never have doubted them.
You shouldn't have doubted the Cleveland Cavaliers either. I think they're going to be the 8th seed in the East.
That was me.
That was me.
No, that was both of you.
No.
Definitely.
I didn't have them in my playoffs. I had Raptors, Celtics, 76ers, Bucks, Pacers, Wizards, Heat, Hornets. My entire bottom 3 didn't make the playoffs.
Fingers crossed Kemba leaves the Hornets so as that he can actually be on national television for the first time in his life.
Gino, you can start to wish things too. Apparently it'll only take $5 billion to pry the Knicks from James Dolan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right. It's basically a fire sale.
He's just giving away money.
So you can't afford not to buy the Knicks at that price.
Yeah. I just need to get together some fraudulent assets. If the Islanders taught me anything about New York sports franchises.
Oh, yeah.
I just need to acquire a bunch of fraudulent assets,
sure,
leverage them, and then I'd own a team for about as long as it takes to audit me.
I was watching the Theranos documentary last night. Doesn't seem that hard.
I need to watch that. So I think that's pretty much all of our preseason predictions. Some were better than others, but I think that the season played out a lot to chalk in some ways. The only big surprise, I think, was the Bucks being so much better. What is that noise?
That noise is I'm not impressed by what we saw today.
For the record, we are recording on Sunday the 28th, which means the Bucks just got beaten by Boston and Golden State's currently playing Houston. Yeah, but I mean, in the first round, Philadelphia got beaten by the Nets handily in Game 1, and the Raptors lost to fucking Orlando in Game 1.
Let's just recognize that Kyrie in the playoffs is not Kyrie in the regular season, and we'll talk about this when we go through the first round first. But man, Kyrie is so frustrating.
Yeah,
he's literally a completely different player when he's in the playoffs. It's ridiculous.
I mean, he learned from LeBron. Like, for the good teams, the entire regular season doesn't mean shit. It actively doesn't matter. And as long as you can turn it on during the playoffs, you're actually better off if you've coasted the entire season. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't have to try in Cleveland for months at a time, because as long as he showed up for 3 or 4 games in the playoffs, it would all be fine, and he'd get just as much of a reward as if he actually gave a shit.
Yeah. All right, so I guess we're now transitioning to the first round and then the second round.
Yeah, I mean, the first round was chalk. Was there any series that you guys especially enjoyed watching, or anything you took away from the first round?
I love the OKC versus Portland series. I thought that was the most entertaining first-round series, even though it was only 5 games.
I agree.
Dame is a monster. I did love seeing Jokic just do Jokic things. So, like, in the last 2 games, he's scored 43, 10, and 9, I think. It was this Game 6. and he didn't shoot great in Game 7, but he put up a triple-double, and they got the W. So, I mean, Jokic is putting on, and I love his doughy old man game.
Yeah, he still cannot jump higher than maybe 2 or 3 inches.
It's great. I was watching a couple of games with him versus the Spurs, and I just saw so many dribble handoffs and pick and rolls with him and Jamal Murray. They might have run the same action 7 or 8 different times in a row, just possession after possession after possession, getting layups and three-pointers and such, just against Derek White and I think it was LaMarcus Aldridge, 2 guys who are not slouches on defense at all, and they were just getting worked by this 2-man old man game. It was amazing to watch, and it's just great seeing Jokic just unable to jump hardly at all, rarely even jogging to like he would not, when the ball gets brought down, he is barely jogging to cross half court and still just deking people. Can't drive by anyone. His pump fakes convince no one, and somehow he still scores and sets people up all the time.
I think that's going to be the bane of their existence going in past the first round, because Jokic, I like how the first time I feel like I've seen Jokic play aggressive was when he got his lip busted up, but even before that and after that, he's still way too passive for the big man that he is, and his team needs him to be assertive. I think I heard like a story that like Jamal Murray went up to him, or Paul Millsap went up to him and was like, look, stop fucking around and actually score the ball. You're our number one option. I need you to be the alpha male. Like, which I thought was great, but yeah. I mean, the big problem is that if you're going up against the Nuggets, Jokic scored 43 points when they lost to the San Antonio Spurs by 17 points. So that's not a good look for the Nuggets going into the next round.
Yeah, but that was Jokic put up that much, and then when he was on the bench, they fell behind by like 10 points. They immediately just started turning the ball over everywhere. I don't think that that's necessarily going to be the case every single time. And in this matchup, they're playing Portland. So I think that they'll be a little bit better matched because Portland does not have the defensive attack dogs that the Spurs do.
Well, Portland doesn't have a center at this point.
No.
Yeah, but I think that Nurkic doesn't necessarily pose a giant problem to Cantor in the same way that Steven Adams didn't. Though at least he can shoot, where he'll at least force Cantor to come out to the three-point line. Steven Adams basically just allowed Cantor to play near the rim and not get exposed at all because none of the players on the Thunder other than Paul George can shoot. I
think in Game 1 against the Nuggets, they're going to have to play Zach Collins because Enes Kanter's arm is still busted up.
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, even if they have to play someone else, like, at least they have guys with girth who can potentially guard Jokic a little bit.
So,
yeah, I agree. The first-round series, those were the 2 big first-round series. Man. I just really enjoyed our conversation, ZP, where you'd be like, Westbrook is better than Dame Lillard. I was like, I don't think that's true.
All right, let's put a timeout on here. Let's weave the legend here, okay?
Why do you love Russell Westbrook so much?
I still don't think that Russell Westbrook has a bad... Okay, look, I think our last conversation is, does Russell Westbrook have a top 10 worst contract in the league? And I answered at the time, no.
Yes, he does.
Because you have to define, like, what is a bad contract? Because when I think of bad contract, I think of Hassan Whiteside or Chandler Parsons. Or maybe, Andrew Wiggins. And Russell Westbrook is definitely better than Andrew Wiggins and Chandler Parsons.
He is, but the thing is he makes, like, twice as much as them.
But you get a return on your investments because Russell Westbrook fills the seats. He sells jerseys, and he is a kind of like icon for OKC. You get rid of Russell Westbrook. I don't know what that team looks like.
I'm sorry. I thought, like, as a nation of NBA fans, we completely disregarded the idea that the NBA is an entertainment product. Like, wasn't that the takeaway from the process? That, like, nobody cares about selling tickets and shouldn't?
I'm just saying.
I learned that lesson.
Russell Westbrook, if there are plenty of teams that are currently trash fires where if they had the opportunity to get Russell Westbrook, they would give Russell Westbrook his money.
Who are those teams, do you think?
I think that any team that did not make the playoffs would happily take Russell Westbrook.
I disagree.
Name me a team that did not make the playoffs that would not take Russell Westbrook.
If I was the Hawks, I would not take Russell Westbrook.
Sure, the Hawks and maybe the Kings.
If I was the Mavs, I wouldn't take him.
Sure, okay.
I think more than half. Let me put it to you this way. I think the well-run teams that didn't make the playoffs would not take Russell Westbrook. Because it's not that he's a bad player. He is obviously a good player.
We need to make that very clear. It's not that he's a bad player. It's whether or not what he brings to the team and what he does to players around.
Yeah, he's on a max contract.
He's on a max.
Yeah, but it's like the super max.
Yeah, it's the John Wall max.
It's the John Wall max, and John Wall's contract is the actual worst contract because he's completely unmovable.
With a 15% trade kicker.
Oh, yeah. Fuck. I didn't know about that
kicker.
kicker.
Ernie Grunfeld's not in the league. I think I talked to Gino about this. I looked at that headline and I was like, that can't be true. That's just a lie. Am I watching The Onion right now?
What's The Onion doing this?
Who fired Ernie Grunfeld? He's the dinosaur that never dies. You could drop a meteor on him and he still would be alive.
Yeah, remember he just tore his Achilles too. It's insane.
Yeah,
and that again, I want to say, John Wall still a pretty good player. He's just overpaid.
Now at this point, after an Achilles injury and all of his other injuries, I don't know if John Wall's good anymore. But Russ is good. The problem is he's paid like literally the best point guard in the entire NBA and one of the like 5 or 6 best players, and he's not even the best player on his own team.
But that's a failure of management. That's not a failure of Russell Westbrook.
No, but it's his contract. The indictment is not on him. It's on the sum of his play plus the money that he's getting paid. And if you're going to put a guy on your team who's making like $40 million a year for the next 5 fucking years, he's shooting like 30% from 3, and he shoots
But he wasn't designed to shoot for threes.
But he
does.
He does. It doesn't matter if he's not designed for it. He refuses to stop. He shot 29% from 3 and on 5.6 attempts per game.
That's a failure of coaching.
No, because he's done this every season.
Can't coach him. I think Russell Westbrook might be the most deliriously overconfident player in the history of the NBA.
Yeah, okay, I think that's the thing. Like, compare him to Dame Dollar and C.J. McCollum, where when they got swept in the playoffs, they're like, we take full responsibility. We're going to come back and go on a revenge tour, and we're going to torch everything that was in our way. And that is exactly what they did. And they did it without talking bullshit or yang. And they're both playing the best basketball of their careers.
Okay, so here's Westbrook's last 5 seasons of three-pointers. 30%, 4.3 attempts per game. 29.6%, 4.3 attempts per game. 34%, 7.2 attempts per game. So he had one hot shooting season. 29.8%, 4.1 attempts per game. And then this season...
You're forgetting the fact that he earned that MVP that year. So, whatever.
Sure he did. He sure had a triple-double. That's true. On a team that barely made the playoffs.
Dude, that team was garbage. That team was garbage. And they were going up against that same Houston Rockets team that I said was criminally underrated that had James Harden, Sweet Lou on the bench, and Eric Gordon on the bench. They were way outclassed.
Part of the problem why they're outclassed is because he's not good enough to do this. He has a very high usage percentage. He's an outstanding rebounder. He gets a lot of...
He's the only good rebounding guard in the league.
That's not true.
I don't think he's that good of a rebounder.
I mean, I think he's good for his position. Like, he's legitimately good.
I don't even know if I would go that far.
I think that he would probably average closer to 6 or 7 rebounds a game if his teammates did not surrender rebounds to him.
I think defensive rebounds are the most useless stat in the world.
I agree with that, though.
You need to end possessions. It's important to do that.
Fine. Sure. Logically, you're correct.
I think a lot of his assists are because he literally refuses to pass the ball until he will register an assist for doing so. Like, he gives the ball away and then immediately demands it back if it's not shot, and then he yells at people if they don't make the shot when he passes it to them. So I just think that it's a problem. You can't have your guy who's going to take the most shots with a gigantic usage percentage.
Although I have to say, I will say, maybe we can agree with this. I think that my opinion of Paul George has increased, and that Paul George is very much, I think, he played probably one of the best, right up until he got hurt. He played the best basketball I've seen him play.
Yes. He was an MVP candidate. He was playing really well.
He was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate too. Like he was even if he didn't have the stats to show it, he was clamping up players, frustrating them. He was kind of in that weird Ben Wallace category of like the stats don't show that he's a defensive powerhouse, but on court if you watch him, you can see it.
Yeah, but I just can't get past that this is the second small forward who plays with Russell Westbrook who just they keep making the playoffs and then getting torpedoed earlier than expected.
Again, I feel like all right.
Russ is always...
A couple of those times, OKC was literally playing an objectively better team.
That's true, but one thing I just want to get across...
This is the first series I think they were up against where they could have reasonably won.
I mean, I think there were a lot of times where they were up against better teams partially because Westbrook isn't that good.
That is complete. That is...
Like, he's good.
He's
a really good player.
He's a very good player.
I would prefer to have a number of different point guards over him.
I can agree with that. I don't disagree with that. But I'm saying, like, Russell Westbrook is very good at his job, and he's in a culture and a team that has not told him that his job has become outdated.
But you can't
play for 10 years.
You can't tell Westbrook anything. Like his response to any issue he's ever.
So wait. We just had this conversation where LeBron James is probably going to go down as the GOAT, but he's uncoachable.
But he's good. Like
he's
Westbrook,
better.
Like LeBron's response to like adversity in his career has been like, okay, what do I need to change? What do I need to develop? Russell Westbrook to any problem in his career has always been, okay, I need to keep doing the things I'm doing, just do them harder.
And I also want to emphasize, like, there are multiple players who, when they've left LeBron, have looked like garbage because they were not good. Like, Mo Williams has an all-star game appearance because he played with LeBron James, and there is no other reason why he would have had any all-star games. Westbrook, every guard who leaves the Russell Westbrook orbit tends to look much better upon stepping out of his shadow, except for Campaign, who will always be trash.
Sure. Okay, let's just do a quick rundown as a summary of the first round. Detroit versus the Bucks. I think I watched 20 minutes of this series and not even that much.
Giannis dunked on them so much.
I feel bad for Blake. I feel so bad for Blake because even with one leg, he was probably the second best person in that series.
Potentially, yeah.
And that team is stuck. Detroit is in cap space hell, and they're going to have to rely on draft picks, and they're not that great on draft picks. So, going on, Raptors versus Magic. At least the Magic managed to snap their postseason appearance drought, and when Vucevic got clamped up, that was a GG.
Yep.
Anything else? Moving on.
DJ Augustine got to steal a game. That was incredible.
That was pretty good. Yeah.
That was cool. Yeah. Good for DJ.
But yeah, good for the Magic. You made the playoffs. I mean, you made it. You snapped your fucking postseason appearance drought.
Here's a question: is Markelle Fultz just not playing? Like, does he just?
Yeah, they're going to give him
a
year.
Okay, because I'm just wondering that even if he can't shoot, they probably could have used a defensive plus point guard in that series.
I say let him rest.
Yeah, I think they're just letting him get his head right.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's probably emotionally and psychologically not in the game. Celtics versus Pacers. If there was a real what-if series, I think this was the one. I would have loved to have seen Victor Oladipo go up against this team. I still think the Pacers would have lost.
But maybe they could have took a game.
They could have taken a game. But, this is a real what-if. I think that the Pacers are just going to go into the next season. Maybe they can finally draft not vanilla for the first time in their franchise history, but I doubt it.
I have no idea.
If there was one series I could have reversed the outcome for, I would have picked this one.
Because,
that Pacers team was so wounded.
Yeah,
they were not
never
going
had
to be
a
able to
chance.
make any noise.
But I think the thing that what will be interesting with this series against the Bucks, because I was just playing around. I think that the Bucks can definitely take a game. Is like Gordon Hayward has to play well. They don't have Marcus Smart. Brogdon is out. They need Gordon Hayward to play well, and I don't know if he's capable of doing it anymore.
What did he do today? Let me check the box score.
I think he did all right, but that was fun. 76ers versus the Nets. This was surprisingly fun to watch, not because of the score maybe sometimes didn't show it, but just seeing two different schools of basketball go head-on-head to each other. Like, you got 76ers, which are big, and you had the Nets, which are probably one of the smallest teams in the playoffs.
Yeah, and then Joel just put Jared Allen in the basket over
it
and
was
over again.
fun to watch, just to see, like, JoJo just pushed literal players to the side and it's like, I'm going to score now. It's like, Karis LeVert, how are you doing? Bye.
Excuse me, D'Angelo, I would like to get by you. Yeah, so that
but
series
I
also
think
a laugher.
I think the one thing that the Nets proved was, like, if you want a real good, legitimate way to put the 76ers on a losing streak, just have someone like Jared Dudley take the tactical and get, fucking Butler all up in his feelings.
Just go fight someone.
Second most annoying player in the NBA.
Jared Dudley, but he does his job well.
Not Jared Dudley, Jimmy Butler.
Jimmy Butler? Oh, okay.
Like, annoying to me personally, not as, like, to play against.
At least the 76ers proved that they could win without Joel Embiid. And the reason why they were able to win was because of Ben Simmons. And Ben Simmons still cannot shoot the ball to save his fucking life, but all of those wanted posters, he made those Nets fans eat their shit and just move on from here and grow.
Yeah, he sure is a lot bigger and stronger and faster than the Nets players he was up against.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but now he's going to go up against Kawhi, and that's going to be a disaster.
Yep, and now he's not. And based on the first game of that series, that might be a problem.
Kawhi effed them up.
We're going to talk about it. We got the Warriors versus the Clippers, and I got to say, just Sweet Lou.
Respect to the Clippers.
Sweet Lou.
Best part of the whole series.
The best part of the whole series. But I think the thing that I learned is that Sean Livingston can't play ball anymore.
Yeah. He's
objectively bad now. Now, let's just say this. A couple seasons ago, maybe a season, if you had asked me 10 years ago, after he got what was probably the worst injury I've ever seen in my entire life in an NBA game, that Sean Livingston would be playing ball in 2019, I would have called
multi-time champion.
A multi-time champion. He was supposed to be the next Magic Johnson as he was building Sports Illustrated. But you know what? The fact that he is still playing is kind of a miracle when you look back at his injury. But, Sean Livingston can't play. I think part of the reason why they lost 2 games is because they played into Pat Bev and Lou Williams' trash talk, which was very strong this series. And, and
losing DeMarcus was actually bad.
It was objectively bad.
It's not that DeMarcus was necessarily needed for his offense, but just having another center who was useful, who could shoot, who could pass, who was complete, versus now having to play Looney's going to be okay, I think, to fill in for that spot, but now instead of playing Looney and DeMarcus and very occasionally Bogut, you have to play Looney and Bogut, and then you have to get into like Alfonso McKinney and other players who you probably don't want to be playing in the playoffs.
They might be able to do what they did last year, which is have that rotation of have Kevin Durant, Draymond, and Iggy fill the role of the center from time to time, but I don't like it. I just don't like it.
Yeah, I don't like it for all of the
series.
The
bench of the Warriors is looking surprisingly weaker now.
Yeah, they're very thin now, so we'll see how it goes. But the first series, I was really impressed by the Clippers. They showed a lot of heart. Danilo Gallinari played really well. Their whole team just is really smart. Just a lot of professional basketball players that really care.
Good on Doc Rivers.
Well coached.
Well coached, and also, good on him we kind of joked about it like 2 podcasts ago. Good on him for realizing, I'm really bad at GMing. I should just be the coach. And
now they're better.
And taking that humble pie, eating it, and then realizing that you're just a coach. Just a
question, Pete.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather have Chris Paul or Patrick Beverley if you're the Rockets?
Is money an object?
Let's say yes.
Yes.
You're paying them what they make.
Shit.
I don't trust Chris Paul's knees.
Yeah, yes, I'd probably pick, if money's an object, Patrick Beverley. If it's not, I'd pick Chris Paul. Because Chris Paul, like, it's low ceiling, low floor, high ceiling. And I'd rather have the high ceiling if, like, there's no opportunity cost associated with it.
Because they were traded for each other, and Montrezl Harrell. Now, last season, Chris Paul
Montrez.
was... Yeah.
I'd like to have him.
Because I think that when they made that trade, Chris Paul really allowed that team to go ISO everything all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You just had James and Chris going back and forth running ISO.
Like D'Antoni said, they had 48 minutes of Hall of Fame point guard.
Exactly. But now, this season, Chris has really just taken a step back. And he's not... he, at his peak, can be Beverly-level defense, but I don't know if he can do that every game in, game out. Maybe he'll make it through the playoffs. That would be nice. But if you're going to have a player... have Chris kind of limited and not ISOing quite as much as he did before and not handling the ball as much because James Harden is the offense unto himself, then you might just want the attack dog defensive point guard who's just going to spot up. And the advantages that Chris is giving you that Beverly didn't aren't necessarily as big of a deal. But I think it's interesting because it's only a season later. I expected this to change, as a deal maybe at year 3 or 4. But now, even at year 2, I don't know which side of that deal I would want more if I was the Rockets and was trying to win a championship this year.
Mm-hmm. Moving on, we have the Nuggets versus the Spurs. The Nuggets won. I think this was the most unwatchable 7-game series I've ever seen.
That's not true.
It's like if you took Jokic out of it and just like the joy of watching him play, yeah, it probably is true.
Yeah, I can only watch so many fadeaway LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan, jump shots.
Good on Pop finding a way to make the playoffs without a point guard.
Stop slandering Derek White.
I don't like.
He's fine.
Does anyone care enough about Derek White to slander him?
Saying he's not a point guard, he's a better point guard than anyone the Phoenix Suns have. One, that doesn't mean anything. But 2, he's like... He played in the playoffs and helped his team make a 7-game run against
get better
the number 2
soon,
seed.
DeJounte Murray.
Yes, he is obviously better, and Patty Mills is good too. Don't you disrespect Patty Mills?
I do like Patty Mills.
All right, fine. And we got the OKC versus Portland. Again, this was the best series in...
Dame Lillard, that shot.
All right, I'm glad you said that.
That's insane.
I think what people are forgetting is that this was a complete implosion of OKC. They were up by 8 points by the 2 minutes. So I decided to do a little research. I got the play-by-play for the last 2 minutes. So at 2 minutes, C.J. McCollum misses a 25-foot three-point pull-up. The score is 113 to 107. 2:04, Terrence Ferguson makes a defensive rebound. Russell Westbrook takes an offensive charge call and turns the ball over to C.J. McCollum. C.J. makes a 5-point, 2-point shot with a Damian Lillard assist. The score is now 113 to 109. Jeremy Grant gets the ball, goes for it, misses a 5-foot, 2-point shot. The score is still 113-109.
His only miss for the game.
Maurice Harkless makes a defensive rebound. Russell Westbrook draws a personal foul, which was the dumbest foul I've ever seen. Maurice Harkless makes both free throws. The score is now 113 to 111. Thunder call a timeout. That was the right call. They start with Paul George with the ball, which was the right call. He turns the ball over to Seth Curry, who steals. C.J. McCollum makes a 22-foot pull-up jump shot. The score is now 113 to 113.
That 22-foot shot would look really terrible if he missed.
Yes.
He literally had like a foot inside of the line.
So that's at the
contested.
57-second mark, okay?
Yep.
All right. So, 39-second mark, Paul George makes a 15-foot jumper. And I want to point out, some of the shots didn't have this, but Paul George literally had to go up to Russell Westbrook and basically say, give me the fucking ball. Which is the right call. That's what he should have done. He should have done that more through this series. Trailblazers call a timeout at the 39-second mark. The score is 115 to 113. They give the ball to Damian Lillard, who proceeds to make a 2-point shot. The score is tied.
Yeah, he drives through the entire Thunder defense and makes a layup.
Team. He drives through. This is when Paul George curiously did not get the ball. They gave it to Russell Westbrook. He goes for a layup at the 18-second mark, misses the layup. So the score is 115 to 115. Al-Farouq Aminu takes the defensive rebound, assists to Damian Lillard. We're at the 0.4-second mark. Damian Lillard takes the shot at 37 feet and makes it.
So, Pete, how did you feel about that shot?
So after the game, there was a press conference, as there usually is, and Russell Westbrook and Paul George were there. And they basically asked the same question, right? Like, what do you think of the shot? And their whole point was, it's a bad shot. And it is. It's an objectively bad shot. He burned 5 or 6 seconds off the clock to take it. But, and this is a huge but, he made it. So if you're Paul George and Russell Westbrook, you can't say that. Yeah. I don't mean you can't say that as in, it's no longer true because the shot went in. It's still true that's a bad shot. I'm just saying it's a punk look for you guys if he burns you like that, and you claim the analytics say, sure, they say whatever they say.
I think Zach Lowe did the analytics. From 30-plus feet, Damian Lillard shoots 60%. Yeah, he's only taken 2 shots, but
he can make those shots. I liked parts of that play. I think burning the clock till it was literally the last shot, that Dame's shot was the last shot that was going to happen, I think that makes total sense. Yeah. You Absolutely. Don't want an offensive rebound situation. The Thunder are one of the best rebounding teams in the league. You don't want to necessarily involve other defenders either, because once you bring other people in, your management of the clock and ability to control whether you'll have the last shot goes down, and you have more things to muck around with it. I even don't mind Dame just kind of slowly walking it up, trying to take away as much ancillary movement as possible. Just kind of storing up his energy, not expending it to skitter around when he felt he was already in range. I don't love a step back 3 from 37 feet to the right.
No one does.
That is a really tough shot. Step backs going to your right when you're a right-handed player are just so much harder than to your left. And to the left's not easy either. I just don't think you needed to do a step back. You could have just faked a drive just a little bit. He didn't even try to fake it. He's just I'm going to do you like this, and you're not going to be able to stop me, which was, it made it one of the baddest looking moves I've ever seen in my life. It looked cool as hell, but it probably, in terms of getting a basket there, was not the best move. Paul George is really good on defense. He had a good contest on that shot. But, when you make it, and you're confident from that far out, I don't mind, because you're just going to go to overtime, If you make it, great. If you don't make it, you're going to overtime, and you're already up 3-1 in the series. So I think that he was kind of playing with house money, and if you're going to play with house money, bet it all. Especially because Russell Westbrook was talking shit. Yeah, and Paul George. They won one fucking game in this entire series, and they immediately started talking shit. And they just got destroyed. 4 out of the 5 games.
And Dame, legitimately hates Russ.
He should.
They legitimately hate each other.
And he should.
Yeah. It's fine with me. I love
Dame is probably the second best point guard in the league at this point, and Russ just keeps getting shine. Yeah, the only reason that Dame isn't considered the best point guard in the league is because Steph's around. Or, one of the best shooters ever. It's because Steph is playing at the same time.
I forget who said it, but I think it was Waj said that what was what they've learned from this series is that...
You mean Woj?
Woj.
Adrian Wojnarowski? Okay.
Dude, you should be used to me mispronouncing names at this point, especially after the Final Fantasy series.
Just for our listeners.
There's another reporter, Big Waz, for The Athletic. I'm making sure which one it was.
Woj. He said that what he pulled from this series is that one of the reasons why Portland was able to win is that Damian Lillard wanted to beat OKC, whereas Russell Westbrook wanted to beat Damian Lillard. That was pretty obvious, is that Russell Westbrook had his eyes on Damian Lillard and just Damian Lillard, and he's very clearly not going to be humble about this, based off of everything he said after the fact, trying to say that it was a bad shot and that sort of thing. I don't understand why Paul George doesn't even get his fucking hands in the air.
He did
on that play.
He got his hands in the air. What I was surprised by was when there was about 5 seconds left, Paul George didn't immediately just run up on Dame.
Exactly.
Because at that point, there's no way he can even pass it and get a shot up. He probably should have started trying to mug him with a few seconds left. It seemed like maybe he lost track of how much time was left on the clock or something. He had a few seconds there where he definitely could have moved up on him, and there was no way Dame could have done anything productive.
Yeah. But it has not been a good playoff series regarding defense against threes, lest we not forget Ricky Rubio's defense against James Harden, which was the funniest thing I've ever seen. Oh, man. Did you guys see that when Ricky Rubio was trying to guard James Harden on his right? He was doing that little shimmy movement. Oh, it was so good. Look that up.
But just the trailing defense, it's not going to work on James Harden. He's too good. He's unguardable. And playing weird gimmick defense, it just seems like he's too good. He will burn you way harder. Just try and guard him straight up and live with it.
Which leads us to the final game from the first round we haven't talked about, Utah versus Houston. And
Houston's much better than them, it turns out.
Yeah, Houston is much better. Utah won a game.
Good for them.
They did. That is a fact.
And this is the one positive thing if you're the Warriors or anyone who goes up to the Houston Rockets in the finals, if they make it, is part of the reason why they lost that one game is they were clanking them like crazy, and they did not change the way they played the ball because Mike D'Antoni and James Harden know how to play one specific style of basketball, and they are not changing for anyone or anything.
And they shouldn't. They're one of the best offenses in the league. James Harden might be one of the greatest offensive players ever. So, now that we're in the second round, who do y'all have in the series? So, first up, let's go with Boston-Milwaukee. And this is one of the series where we actually have an outcome already. Boston is up 1-0 on Milwaukee. Who do you have coming out of that series? And why?
I'm still taking Milwaukee. I mean, I don't know how Al Horford continues to sort of work this weird jiu-jitsu on all the incredibly athletic centers that come his way. But I just don't trust Boston. I think they're weird and fractured, and Bucks are also the best team out of the East, so I'm sticking with them.
I have Boston in 7, but I've always felt iffy about this. Again, I will repeat what I said last time when we're going over the round 1 results. Kyrie in the playoffs is a completely different player. It's not even funny. It's like he's that Uncle Drew character but on a basketball court. It's just, you don't predict him to be just a beast, but then he totally is. And I think that Al Horford has been a very good defender in the playoffs so far, and that he can continue to do that. And I don't know who from the Celtics will be guarding Giannis, if they even care.
Horford.
Yeah, he can do an okay job, and I just like the bodies. I like the extra bodies from the Celtics. I think the Celtics have one of the better benches in the entire league. And I don't trust the Bucks because they're young. I just don't.
So I have the Bucks in 6 here, and my thinking is for Game 1, the Bucks are still feeling it out. I don't think that Brook Lopez is going to be able to play as many minutes, and I think Nikola Mirotic is going to have to play more because the Bucks are they've got a lot of guys who don't necessarily line up against Al Horford Al Horford's the biggest player on the other side. I don't think you can afford to have a 7-footer who's slow and plodding in the way that Brook Lopez is. There's just too many small and medium-sized bodies on the Celtics to play that. So I think once you get Brogdon back, which he should, I think, be back in Game 3, and once you start making changes to play smaller, maybe Giannis at center, and guards around him and small forwards around him, once you make that adjustment, I think that they should be able to outscore the Celtics and play 4 out and Giannis. I think he'll figure it out. So what do you think about the next series, Toronto versus the 76ers?
Yeah, I can only hope and pray that this is the death dirge of the process. Even with my biases aside, I think the Raptors are better. I mean, Pascal's really came on this season. Kawhi's, arguably still he's definitely one of, if not the best defensive wing player in the league. I mean, I don't think the Sixers mesh well. I don't think they ever have. And I think a lot of their shortcomings are going to be exposed in this series.
How many games?
It goes at least 6. I'll say Raptors in 6.
I'm going to say Raptors in 6. I also think that 2 underrated parts that we haven't talked about yet. I think Kyle Lowry on J.J. Redick would be a disaster for the 76ers. Yeah. And he's flexible, so you could even put him on Jimmy Butler, even though Jimmy Butler can shoot over him, and just have Pascal Siakam lurk around and do his thing in open space. But I think the real clutch is Kawhi is going to get so many turnovers from Ben Simmons. It's going to be ridiculous.
It's going to be brutal.
It's going to be, I think, if you want to turn that into a drinking game, like, you're going to die. I think that, Kawhi is going to just get so many turnovers from Ben Simmons, and so I have Toronto in 6.
I have Toronto in 5, and my thinking is just that Toronto is better than the Sixers at, I think, everything. Like, I think they're better at almost every position except for center. But Joel Embiid's skills are being huge and dominating smaller players, whereas Marc Gasol isn't as dominant on offense. He will not be dominated by
equally
Joel
huge.
Embiid.
Yeah, and also Marc Gasol has forced Embiid to average only about 12 to 15 points per game against him.
Yeah, because a lot of JoJo's points come from just being giant. In a way that other centers can't even deal with. Like, he's pretty skilled, but he's not Hakeem Olajuwon in the post yet. He's getting better. And now that he's playing one of the best defensive centers in the league and one of the best post defenders in the league, I don't think he's going to be able to get away with just bullying people around. So I think that at this point, the Raptors outskill the 76ers at almost every position. It's especially the bench. Like, the bench is not really a contest.
Would you like to hear the funniest joke I've heard in a long time?
Sure.
ESPN has Marc Gasol listed at 255 pounds.
That is a hilarious joke.
That has literally never been true in his entire career.
So I think Raptors in 5.
Yeah,
it'll
Portland
be tough.
versus Nuggets might be the hardest to predict because I don't know what to go with.
There's going to be no defense in the entire series. I can tell you that right now.
I think I'll take Portland in 6.
Ooh.
Because I think the Nuggets, as good as they were, I think Portland is more experienced than them. Like the Spurs, they're just a seasoned team. And I don't know what the fuck you do if Dame Lillard decides he wants to call a pick and roll and involves Nikola Jokic in it. Like, what happens? Jokic was getting toasted by Derek White in pick and rolls. Dame Lillard is just going to annihilate him.
I think this series is going to come down to irrational shot making, like whether Jamal Murray can turn it around and start to fill things up in the way that he sort of did during the regular season. I'm going to assume that he will, and I'm going to take the Nuggets because I think they need less irrational shot making than Portland, even if I do think Dame Lillard is more poised to deliver said shot making. I'm going to say Nuggets in 7.
I'm going to go with Nuggets in 6, and this has to do with the fact that Portland literally does not have a big. Kanter and Nurkic are out. I think that even though Kanter is what he is, and he's way better on the bench than as a starter, he was a stopgap that helped them. Like, let's not forget, he scored 20 points and 13 rebounds against OKC. I think that the pick and roll defense is going to be the bane of everyone's existence here. It goes both ways.
Mm-hmm. Fair.
But I think the Nuggets are going to get the advantage just because they're healthier.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
and the last series, Golden State versus Houston.
We might as well call this series the actual NBA Finals.
Yes, the actual NBA Finals, Golden State versus Houston.
You think Houston's better than the Bucks?
I think it's close, but I don't know if the Bucks are going to get there because
Okay. Yeah,
the Raptors are also very good.
Yeah, true. Okay.
So what do we think?
The Warriors are still too good.
What I want and what I think are two different things.
As they usually are.
It looks like Draymond's getting the Harden assignment, which I think is probably the best case scenario for the Warriors, and then maybe put that assignment on a rotation with eventually maybe Iggy off the bench. But it really depends if Clay can be the X factor, because so far he's been okay, but not an X factor for the Warriors. And the surprise X factor for Houston will be, can Chris Paul stay healthy for a playoff series that actually matters?
Yeah.
Eric Gordon's apparently going to be put on Curry, which I think is great because he clamped up Donovan Mitchell pretty well.
Donovan Mitchell ain't Steph Curry, though.
Yeah, I get that, but I think that these are some weird matchups. Like, PJ Tucker is kind of like Pat Bev, but without the bark. Because he's just going to... And PJ
He's
Tucker...
a fire hydrant that shoots threes.
Yeah, PJ Tucker is a fire hydrant that shoots three, but he plays five when he wants to hurt people.
Yeah, he's like Chuck Hayes if Chuck Hayes could shoot.
Chuck Hayes. There's a blast from the past.
And I like Houston's bench better. Like, I like Kenneth Faried on the bench.
Yeah, and as much as it pains me to say it, Doc's son is a legitimate player. And Iman Shumpert, like Nene, they've got a good number of players who are competent. I don't like the Warriors after like their top six.
But does any of this matter? Like, I agree with all the things you're saying, and I still don't think any of it matters.
No, I think that if Kevin Durant's going to keep scoring fucking 50 on 20 shots or some bullshit like that, I don't think it matters one bit.
No.
And I don't think, as much as I like Houston's ability to put guys on Curry, I don't see any player on their entire fucking lineup that can guard KD even a little bit. Is it like PJ Tucker? Is that what we're doing here? Is that what we're thinking?
I guess, yeah. Like, who else?
Like, PJ's really good. He's a really good defensive player, but KD is just on another level. And James Harden's going to have Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, Andre Iguodala, just on rotation, occasionally Sean Livingston, just coming in and guarding him one-on-one, and they're going to be a pain in the ass. And I don't think Kevin Durant's going to have to work that much because Steph Curry's on the court with him, and you can't throw extra bodies at him because Steph or Klay will get open.
I guess you could put Trevor Ariza on Durant.
Trevor Ariza isn't on the Rockets anymore.
Never mind. They chiefed out.
Look, Iman Shumpert, I don't think he's going to do it. I don't think he's the difference maker against Kevin Durant. I don't think that Chris Paul is going to be able to guard him either. So it's going to be really tough. But if they do it, I think it's because Houston's just going to shoot a hojillion threes. Like, as many threes as the Warriors should shoot, Houston's going to actually shoot that many.
Yeah, but I think that, I mean, Klay needs to not, like, if Klay gets really streaky in this series again, I don't know, man. I don't know.
So we all think it's probably a 7-game, right?
I absolutely think it's going to be 7 games.
I think it's Warriors in 6. But, I mean, if it went 7, I wouldn't be shocked by it.
6 or 7 games, and we all think the Warriors, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, 100%.
You know, I'm going to be contrarian here. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say I don't like how much the Warriors were tested by the fucking Clippers. They haven't shown that they have the energy necessarily to keep up with this Houston team. And I think that at a certain point, when you try to flip the switch, one of these times it's just not going to flip. And it almost happened to them last year against this team. Sure. So I'm going to say Houston in 7.
Okay. Your bravery knows no bounds, Gino.
I'm going to try it, because y'all yelled at me about picking Giannis as the MVP.
Oh, boy.
Okay, so that is it for Balls Deep NBA. Thank you, Pete.
Yeah, always a pleasure to talk hoops with you guys. Glad to have it.
Thank you, ZP.
You better finish your Hotiful Boyfriend plate.
I will, don't you worry. And thank you, listeners. Reminder, if you want to get in touch with the show, you can do so at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We've got our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. Till next time, peace!